Wow. Well, this was quite exciting. I didn't get to see that video beforehand, so some of what I'll be saying again is repeating myself. But you know, you hear things a couple times, and you really get to understand them and really remember what's said. So again, I'd like to thank Susan, David, and all the trustees for bestowing such an incredible honor on me. But before I do, I want to tell you a little secret about them. They've poked fun at me a little bit, and I have a little secret that I want to tell about them. They're a bit mischievous, you know. You would expect the notification to the winner would have the same gravitas as the award itself. Perhaps a phone call with trumpets blaring in the background. Maybe a 3-pound letter filled with glitter and gold dust. But no, these very important and reputable people treat it like a surprise birthday party. They invite you to a supposed another meeting. You get there, and under some pretense, you're standing there in front of all of them, and they say, "Surprise! You've won the Philadelphia Award." Well, I was shocked. I have to say, I was totally and completely shocked at looking at all these trustees, people that most of whom I only imagined meeting in my dreams, are there to wish me congratulations. Now, those of you who know me know I've suffered a lot at the hands of celiac disease. You got to hear the story. I had a full-term stillbirth, 3 miscarriages, and a 2-pound baby, 2-pounder sitting right in front. My hair was falling out, my teeth were breaking. I like to think of myself as a strong-willed woman. I like to think of myself as being very professional. So what did I do when I saw all those trustees waiting to congratulate me on this honor? After getting over the shock, I just cried. Oh yes, I just cried. I wanted to be the sophisticated advocate they were expecting, but no way. I'm sure that at that moment they thought a revote was in order. But it was too late. I'm sorry. I've thought a lot about those tears I shed in front of the trustees of the Philadelphia Award. I worry that I didn't actually get to tell them what an amazing gift that they had bestowed. So I'd like to do so now by telling Susan Sherman and all the trustees how humbled and appreciative I am that you would believe that I and my organization are worthy of being in part of such a group as Sister Mary Scullion, Jerry Lenfast, Jeremy Nowak, Bill Rouse, the Annenbergs, and all the other past recipients. Thank you so much. I'm really honored and humbled. I realize now that those tears were shed for many reasons. First, not only was it a monumental shock, but it was also a monumental milestone in my life. I was overwhelmed by the recognition of what had been achieved. And my thoughts flowed to all those who've been so instrumental in getting me to this point. Let me start with you, Ed. When I first heard you were going to nominate me for this award, I was honored that you would even think I deserved to be associated with such a distinguished group. But I never thought I'd actually be standing here today. I just assumed you were a bit biased. After all, you had just said, you were the person who told me when I started the NFCA, you would join my board if I got an NIH grant. That helped me to realize that if we were going to succeed, we had to set our sights high. I was probably too idealistic to understand how difficult it would be for non-MD, non-PhD to receive such a grant. But my previous boss and good friend, Dick Moberg, who's here today, was an amazing collaborator and mentor. And after a year of help and hard work, we got the NIH funding. And you've been a tireless board member ever since. There's a lesson here, Ed, which is, of course, never make promises you can't keep. You may be on the hook to honor them for a very long period of time. There are also people like Dick Kogan, Jack Wizmersky, and Linda Holliday, my earliest mentors, who pushed us to exploring the science behind the disease. And Ira Brin, the Schurs, the Cormans, the Gagnes, the Careys, the Votes, the Shapiros, the Greens, the Kranzers, the Glickmans, the Blesniks, the Procopios, my in-laws, the Basts, the Banners, the Waldys, Jane, Rory, Jennifer, and Bob McNeil, our first sponsors. And if I missed anybody, thank you all so much for your past support. You helped us get the word out when no one cared about the words gluten-free. Nancy Ginter has been our Director of Operations when we had no operations. Actually, the operation was on the 3rd floor of my house. She helped me build an organization that has national scope and reach. My husband Will's company, NetReach, who donated our website that provided a platform to give us international presence. Friends and board members like the Mandels, the Henrys, the Clemens, who opened their lovely homes to our gastronomic fundraiser, Appetite for Awareness. And if you've never been to Appetite for Awareness, you've got to join us. You got to see it on the video. It started out with about 150 people, and now almost 2,000 people attended. It's really a lot of fun and a lot of great food. Our scientific advisory board members, notably Philadelphia medical stars, Dr. Ritu Verma, Dr. Anthony DiMarino, Dr. Marla Gold, Dr. Rich Mandel, all helped to embrace our work and mission. David Yadgaroff, who keeps celiac top of mind with KYW News Radio, David Cohen, our food industry expert, my staff who works tirelessly. They continue to work for us. Jen, Whitney, Cheryl, Kristen, Nancy, Becky, Sue, Loretta, and all our hundreds of volunteers who help us day in and day out. Thank you so much. And of course, our amazing board is always there, keeping us on target, dreaming bigger and better strategy, and providing emotional and financial support. My tears were also shed for the people that have been reached by our efforts. Understand that celiac disease is not an allergy. Rather, it's a serious autoimmune disease, just like lupus or MS. Simply stated, there's an attack by one's own body by eating wheat, rye, or barley. The food is supposed to nourish our body is actually poisoning us. The long-term health effects are disastrous. The victim's body can't absorb the nutrients, and the effects are widespread. Bone disease, including osteoporosis, anemia, stunted growth, and dental problems. In my case, as I said, several miscarriages, a stillbirth, and 6 lost years of life were caused by undiagnosed celiac. People dealing with thyroid problems, infertility, depression, tingling in their fingers and toes, stomach ailments, and yes, even cancer. Cancer, that big C word that we're all afraid of, may be blind to the fact that the issues they're dealing with have the same root cause, undiagnosed celiac disease. And 95% of the millions of Americans who have celiac don't know it. Only 200,000 of these 3 million people are currently diagnosed. If you know one person with diagnosed celiac disease, there is 9 people that you know that have undiagnosed celiac disease. And $10 billion, that's billion with a B, is wasted on unnecessary medical treatment and testing. Even if you do know it, you may have trouble figuring out how to avoid it. Gluten can be found in all kinds of unexpected places. Hot dogs, candy, deli meats, tea bags, soy sauce, why it's even in lipsticks and medication. On top of that, food preparation can cause contamination. If you spread peanut butter onto a piece of bread and then you dip that knife back into the jar for a second time, guess what? That jar of peanut butter is contaminated and it's poison to anybody with celiac disease. Getting doctors, restaurants, and food manufacturers and retailers to understand the seriousness of the problem is a gargantuan task. After all, if nobody knows they have the problem, nobody's complaining. And if nobody knows they need a product, there's no market demand for it. And since treatment is a change in diet rather than a pill, no pharmaceutical company has shown much support. Many doctors have a natural bias in treating the symptoms rather than looking for that root cause. Which brings me back to crying. The Philadelphia Award is special because the sole purpose is to shine the light on the brightest part of our city. As we heard, the award's founder, Edward Bach, thought the idea of good citizenship should be kept before the minds of the people of Philadelphia. He wanted to make sure that we were all made aware of such important acts. Well, the NFCA is solely about awareness. getting people to understand that they can treat their problems by changing their eating habits, getting restaurants to understand that gluten-free food can be spectacular and must be safe, and getting food manufacturers and retailers to see the growing market, and getting doctors to see the connections they were not accustomed to looking for. And of course, Philadelphia has been the incubator and the heart of this effort. Our original funding started here. Our programs were tested here first. Philadelphia's most famous chefs, who we saw on that video, Jose Garces, Mark Vetri, George Perrier, and the Food Network host, Mark Summers, were first to embrace the idea that gluten-free food could be fashionable and, yes, delicious. And as Ed pointed out, we were instrumental in getting retailers like Wegmans, Whole Foods, ShopRite to establish special sections to supply foods that celiacs could rely on. And we trained 60 restaurants in the Philadelphia area. This is why Philadelphia was named America's first gluten-free neighborhood. And other cities are jealous. I want you to know they're calling and they want to be a gluten-free neighborhood first, so we're no longer just that hoagie city, as I said. Obviously, many of these tears were shed in joy. But there were others that were shed in recognition of all we have yet to accomplish. The fact that the words gluten-free are actually in the vocabulary of so many has been an amazing accomplishment in itself. But the truth is, most people who we've touched so far can afford to shop at the better stores, to get the better medical advice, eat at the higher-end restaurants, and shop at sophisticated markets. An inner-city school child has no way for her to find out whether she has the disease. There's nothing on a typical lunch menu that she can eat. And there's nowhere to shop. Parents have the same problem at those places they eat and buy food. In Philadelphia, we estimate 20 to 25,000 children are suffering from undiagnosed celiac disease. These kids are experiencing behavioral problems, learning difficulties, stunted growth, chronic illness, and serious health issues. We've been working with mass retailers like Walmart to create gluten-free sections in their stores. Yes, I've been to Northwest Arkansas a number of times. I'm glad I live in Philly, but I did enjoy my trips. We're working with food service establishments to understand preparation and create gluten-free menus. And we are helping to launch the first gluten-free pizza into schools, and that's the public school systems nationwide. And as Ed mentioned, we are proud to say that we consulted with Anheuser-Busch to create Redbridge, the first mainstream gluten-free beer. Above all, there is testing. Here is my dream. By 2015, we will have 1 million people across the country tested and diagnosed with celiac disease. Ambitious, yes, but as I said, Ed, you taught us an early lesson of setting our goals high. And all of this is doable. But we continue to need all of your support. We've been instrumental in creating the gluten-free marketplace. Gluten-free has become a definable market segment, one that has real demand so that restaurants, retailers, and manufacturers are paying attention. It is a market that has huge potential, especially if more and more people are tested and properly diagnosed. This is also about self-empowerment, giving the people the opportunity to choose what they know to be good for them. It is the opportunity for all of us to rethink what we eat. And this is the opportunity to help prevent chronic illness and save lives. Two final stories will demonstrate the power of what I'm talking about. It's the story of Lisa Green, a woman who I've never met, but whose brother Bill sits on the NFCA's board. Lisa was on the list for a liver transplant, and Bill and his wife called me one day and said, "You know, do you think it could be celiac disease?" And I said, "What? Of course. Have her tested. You know, she's a family member. Get her tested." I'm no doctor, but I do know the insidiousness of this disease. Sure enough, after this simple blood test, Lisa got diagnosed with celiac. She's now healthy. She's off the liver transplant list. A simple blood test most likely saved her life. And then there's Sophie Kagan. At age 14 months, her parents took her to the doctor because she was listless and her bright personality completely faded. The doctors told the Kagan family that their beloved child either had a neuroblastoma or a deep bone infection. Her organs were shutting down. Just put yourself in their shoes. They're in the hospital. They're told that their kid potentially has cancer. Larry and Beth Ann were besides themselves in fear that their daughter was dying. Over the next 6 weeks and hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of testing and procedures and needless anxiety, her pediatrician suggested Sophie be tested for celiac. Instead, a simple blood test saved her life. She's now a 7-year-old girl. Her life has been restored. I can't say I cried for either of them specifically that day, but I do know that their tears were shed for those like Lisa and Sophie who have suffered. They were also shed for those like her who have found a way out. And they were shed for all those patients who are now suffering, or maybe someday be suffering, and those who cannot afford to find a solution. Truly, this award is a gift, for it gives us the platform to move our dreams closer to reality. Thank you again to the trustees for making this all possible. And thank you to all of you who supported us so far on this journey. And a very special thank you to my family, Will and my girls, Elizabeth and Linnea. I'm very proud of both of you. Thank you for all that you've put up with me. I've been on the road for many, many days and nights trying to raise awareness for the disease. And they've been supportive and understanding of my personal mission to get people tested and diagnosed with celiac so they too can restore their health and reclaim their life. And thank you to all of you who've come to share this remarkable day, especially my family who's traveled far and wide, my sister, my brother, my nephew. Thank you. It's this simple. Getting diagnosed starts with a $30 blood test. And if you or your family members have any of the symptoms I've discussed today, please get them tested. We actually have some bags outside that has the symptom checklist in it, so you can see if you might have any of these symptoms. I believe that your support of the NFCA will help us to reach our goal of securing diagnosis for 1 million people by 2015.